This is the $15 camera that nobody is talking about. It's called the Canon Rebel 2000. It's also called the EOS 300 and the EOS Kiss 3 in other markets. Nobody's talking about this camera. It's a 35mm film camera. I bought it for $15 on eBay, and it has some really nice features that actually make it super convenient to shoot with. Film photography is a ton of fun, and I love to bring my film cameras whenever I go on vacations and trips with my friends and just like do things where I'm gonna create memories, because for whatever reason, my iPhone pictures don't feel the same as my film camera pictures. And when I get like a nice crispy 35mm shot that is just in focus with a flash and it's got the grain, it's just got the film look, I find it really hard to emulate that same film look with my digital cameras. And you can get very close, but at the end of the day, the film look is what everyone that shoots film photography is hunting for. In addition to the film look, there's also something to be said about shooting with a camera that just doesn't have a display on the back, right? Like, when I'm using this thing, I put it up to my face, I click, the photo's done. And more often than not, I'm not gonna take the second photo because I just hope that the first shot worked. A roll of film and the cost to process it and get scans costs almost twice as much as what I paid for this camera, which is insane. But that's why it's such a good value, and I feel like I want to share it with the world because I haven't heard anyone else talk about this thing. So let's take a closer look at the camera itself. For starters, it's an all plastic body all the way around, which means that it's pretty lightweight. Obviously, plastic doesn't feel like the highest quality material. If you're used to higher end cameras that are metal construction or other materials, this is gonna feel cheaper in the hands, and that's because it is. The lens mount is also plastic, which is something to note because if you're using a really big, heavy metal lens, it'll feel super front heavy on this camera, and then it also potentially could damage the lens mount. So that's why I went with something really small. I've got the Canon 40mm pancake, and this just makes the whole combination super light, very easy to travel with. And honestly, I got no problem just throwing this thing in my backpack and not being worried because the camera was 15 bucks. So like at the end of the day, if it gets scratched, I'm not gonna cry about it. And this thing has taken quite a beating on all the travel that I've brought it with. There are three features with this camera that I really like, and the first of which is this built-in flash. Now, it's a tiny built-in flash, right? It's not gonna be doing the hard work that a full-size speedlight is gonna do for you, but for a pretty compact travel-size camera, especially if you have a small pancake lens, this is gonna do more than enough, and I love getting the flash look with film. Whether I'm shooting at nighttime or in the day, it just looks really nice to have that flash filling your subject matter, especially if you're shooting like your friends, and then it looks great. I love it. I don't get the same vibe when I shoot flash and digital. I feel like flash and film just looks really nice. The other things that I love about this are the dial and the LCD display. These features are incredibly convenient, and they bring a breath of modern camera use into analog film photography, because this LCD display, when you turn the camera on, will start showing you information about the shutter speed, the aperture, and other things related to whatever mode you are currently in. So as you turn this dial that I'm turning right now, there's aperture priority, shutter priority, program auto, full manual, and then some other modes, as well as the red L right here, which means that the camera is off. The L stands for lock. So it's a really easy and simple interface to use, and it's super convenient because if you're using a Canon EOS camera right now, or if you grew up shooting with Canon, which I did, this feels incredibly familiar, and unlike some more cumbersome film cameras, this one you could just pick up and swap and just get straight to shooting without having to learn a million new things. The camera also does have a pretty simple autofocus system. You can select the focus point. It's not that many. You do it by clicking on this button at the top here, and then it shows you where the focus point is. So as you turn the rotary dial I'm spinning up here, you can see that there are a couple of focus points to choose from. I find it pretty useful. I normally just leave it on the center because I think that most of the time I'm framing dead center with my subject, but it's a pretty useful feature, and having autofocus on a 35mm film camera is really convenient. I've shot plenty of full manual SLRs, and I like using it too. The full manual feeling is great, but for a point and shoot with interchangeable lenses, it's really convenient to have autofocus. On the back here, we have the film door, so you would just pop this open. I'm not gonna pop it open because I actually have half a roll of film left to shoot here, unfortunately, but it's super simple. Loading it up is automated. You put the roll in, and then once you drag the film across and shut the door, the camera will actually roll the entire film roll out. And then as you capture photos and expose them, it puts the captured photos back inside of the film roll. So that way, if you were to make the mistake of opening this door when the film roll is not complete, all of the photos that you already captured wouldn't be ruined because they're already back inside of the film roll. So convenient safety feature. I personally don't run into that problem. Like, I know not to open the door, but a beginner might not, and that could be helpful. Enough talk about the camera itself. Let's look at some of the photos that I've taken with this thing throughout the years. All right, so in this first photo, you can see that there's just blown out highlights at the top, but the colors on this Portra 400 just look so good. The greens are so green, and there's just nice orangey kind of hues overall. I think I shot this with a 16 to 35 millimeter L lens, and I don't know, I just absolutely love it. This next photo was flying actually back home from the Bahamas, also with the 16 to 35 millimeter. And the wide angle with the film, it just looks great. If you zoom in, you can even see, you know, it's got pretty solid detail. Because at the end of the day, the film matters more than anything else, the medium that you're shooting with, and then also the glass that you're shooting through. Which is why it's nice that cameras like these are so cheap, because the camera itself is just doing the mechanical exposure of the film, but the things that dictate the quality are the lens and the film itself. So it's a fun difference from digital cameras where the camera body does matter a lot in terms of image quality, but with film cameras you can get a cheap body like this and still have great images. This photo is an example of what you may run into when you're using the built-in flash, because if you're using a big enough lens, which this was a 16 to 35, I think, the flash might get cut off. So you could see on the right side of this photo that there's some dark space, and that's just because that was where the end of the lens was, and the flash couldn't get high enough over that lens. So I use the pancake lens now, and I don't run into that issue, but if you have a big enough lens, this might be a problem. That's enough of me talking about the photos. I'm just gonna put a couple more shots that I've taken with this camera up, and you guys can be the judge on what you think. So if you're looking for a cheap way to get into 35mm film photography, I can't recommend this camera enough. You can find them on eBay all day. The prices will vary. I did get mine for $15, but it's a really, really cheap and fun, easy to use film camera. And if you're already in the Canon ecosystem and you have EF lenses like this one, you don't even have to buy a new lens. I think I bought this lens for about $128 or so, but I think that it's cheap enough, even with that combo, that it's still worth every penny. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I absolutely love this camera, but I'll see y'all in the next one.